Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my time living in Vancouver. I wasn't actually there for that long. I think I was there for about 8 months. And while I was there, I lived in 2 different places within Vancouver. So I have a little bit of experience. I tried to get out and do different things, do as much as I possibly could before I came back. And I know that a lot of my Vancouver videos you guys have been really excited about. It is a pretty exciting place to live. So I wanted to kind of give you guys like a little rundown of what it was like living in Vancouver, and for comparison I'm gonna use Toronto because I've also lived in Toronto before, and I know that those 2 Canadian cities generally get compared quite often. So I'm just gonna touch on a couple points about how it was living in Vancouver. So I'm gonna start with what you guys probably want to hear about the most, which is the housing costs. Vancouver is probably the most expensive city. So I know that there's always, you know, like the top 5 or top 10 most expensive cities. Vancouver is generally at the top of that list. So when I was looking at 1-bedroom apartments, some of the ones that I found, I did find some for under $1,500. Were they the greatest apartments in the world? No, not really. They were a little bit sketchy, maybe not the fanciest, not updated, but at the end of the day, if you're dead set on getting a 1-bedroom and you don't make above like 60 or 70,000 a year, at least, then you're probably going to be looking at an apartment that's maybe not the prettiest. And can I just say there's also nothing wrong with that. I have lived in some pretty crappy places. So if that's what you're looking for and your priority is to live by yourself, then you can spend under $1,500, but it's going to be really hard. You're gonna have to spend quite a bit of time looking and also really thoroughly check out the places because they're not going to be the best. But at the end of the day, about, like I said, $1,600 to like $2,200 probably was about how much I saw for 1-bedroom apartments. So when I actually moved there, I had been looking for 1-bedrooms, but I actually ended up getting a roommate. So we shared a 2-bedroom apartment. It was honestly a really nice place. The rooms were really good sizes. The living room was a good size. The kitchen was great. The building was beautiful. It was in a great location. We were like 10 minutes from Stanley Park, 10 minutes from the beach. It was 10 minutes from the harbor. We were very, very central. And for that place, we paid $2,450. So that was split between the 2 of us, but that was a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment. So if you are willing to sacrifice the privacy and your own space of having a 1-bedroom apartment, you can save a lot of money by getting 1 or 2 roommates. And the second place that I lived was actually a communal house. It was like communal living, if you guys have heard of that. I first heard of it when Raya was here. She's a YouTuber. I'll put a little photo here. She, herself and Fun for Louie, who are 2 YouTubers that I adore with all of my heart, they both did community living and it kind of intrigued me. So when I got the opportunity to, and I saw that there was a communal house in Vancouver looking for more roommates, I was very excited. So that was the second place that I lived, and I would like to say, maybe I'll make a video on what it was like. I was only there for 2 months, but I think that it would still be a really cool video. Maybe if you guys are interested, let me know. But that place obviously was much cheaper, well below $1,000 a month, just because there were 6 to 9 of us in the house at any given time. And this actually will connect to a point that I want to make later in the video. If you're willing to live like that, you 100% should go ahead and do that. If you want to live in a community, it's such an incredible way to connect with people, and you kind of get to live with a family. One of my later points is that sometimes people seem to find it difficult to make friends in Vancouver. If you live with roommates, or if you think that you're the type of person that would really do well in a community house, then I think that you should totally try that out, because that's such a great way to make friends that very quickly become family. So in comparison to Toronto, when I was looking for similar housing situations, so generally a 1-bedroom is kind of what I was looking for, 1-bedroom or studio. I don't I don't really mind. I would say Toronto was a little bit cheaper, but not by enough for me to really justify living in Toronto instead of Vancouver. For example, when you moved to Vancouver, there were other aspects like how close it was to the beach and how you could see the mountains and how close it was to the mountains and how it was a little bit warmer there. So like taking those things into consideration, that's why I chose Vancouver. But in comparison to Toronto, the housing prices are very, very similar. A 1-bedroom when I was looking in Toronto still hit around the $1,500 to $2,000 mark very easily. Now let's talk about the weather in Vancouver, which is what everyone warned me, okay? Because I'm pretty much a sunshine girl. I like the sun. I love the sun. I still do like rain. I think it's very peaceful, but I was a little worried because everyone really warned me that when I went to Vancouver, it would just be raining all the time. And to be fair, keep in mind again, I was only there for 8 months, but it was 8 months over the winter period. And I really didn't find it that bad. It still rained quite often. And I'll be honest, I noticed that the weather forecast often called for rain, but then it wouldn't actually rain. I will take that rainy winter in Vancouver any day over the multiple feet of snow that Ontario and Toronto sometimes gets in the winter, and the warmth over how cold it gets in Toronto. I was there all winter, and while I was there, it dropped below zero degrees Celsius. It dropped below maybe once or twice the entire 8 months I was there. It snowed again once, I think, when it actually stuck. But even then, it snowed and it was about an inch of snow and it stuck for maybe a few hours and then it went away. And then when you look at Toronto, a lot of the time, I mean, you have snow all winter, you always have to drive through it, you always have to walk through it, and it's pretty much below zero all winter as well. So as far as weather goes, yes, it rains more than Toronto, because I mean, in Toronto, that same rain is kind of the equivalent of the snow in Toronto. But it wasn't as bad as I expected. I think that people really talk about how much it rains, so maybe I was expecting more and then there wasn't as much as I expected. But I really don't think it was too bad. Unless you despise rain, it was totally manageable, and half the time the rain was so light, it was more like a mist or a drizzle. I'm gonna touch on transportation a little bit. I can't speak too much on it because I know that I didn't drive a car while I was there, although I have heard that the insurance is incredibly expensive in Vancouver versus here in Ontario. And I took transit a few times, but for the most part, I actually Evo'd. It's basically this car company, and they have a bunch of Toyota Priuses around the city, and you can use an app to basically unlock the car and then drive it. Evos were super affordable for me. Like I remember I did like a 1.5 to 2 hour trip to IKEA one time, and it cost I think $35, which is incredible because if I had tried to do that same trip with like an Uber or something, it would have been very pricey. And even just in a normal car where you have to pay for insurance and gas, it's still, even compared to that, it's very affordable. So I'd say honestly, the transportation and commuting to work and stuff was super easy. They've got buses, they've got the SkyTrain, and then they also have little ferries. There's like a sea bus or a water taxi that take you like across the harbor and stuff. So I'd say that as far as traditional transportation and transit goes, like the buses and the train and stuff, it's very similar to Toronto. They have them running from like 5 o'clock in the morning to super late at night. I believe the fare I paid was around $3 for taking transit, which again is super close to Toronto. So in that sense, it didn't make much of a difference. But I will say that Vancouver is a much more bike-friendly city. I think that they've put a lot of money into their infrastructure to make it bike-friendly, whereas in Toronto, I'm a little nervous if I go biking in Toronto. There aren't as many bike lanes and there's not really as much space on the streets, whereas in Vancouver, they put a lot of effort into giving bikes their own path on the road. There are so many commuters that are cyclists. For lots of people in Vancouver, that is their main form of transportation, is cycling. So I will say, transit-wise, it was really good. I had a great experience there. Evo was super affordable and biking was very accessible, and I felt really safe biking there. This is the big one where they like don't even compare to each other, and that's when it comes to like the scenery and the views. That obviously depends what you like in your views. If you like the views of a city, Toronto's a great city for that. But I personally am such a sucker for the ocean. I love being near the ocean. It makes my heart happy. And being able to see the mountains is pretty incredible. Of course, you have to still get to the mountains and stuff and get to the beach, so that's when it comes in handy to live somewhere near those areas or to live near transit that can take you there. But at the end of the day, the beach and transit was super accessible for me, and I could, like I mentioned, walk there in like 10 minutes, so it was perfect. And you know, you've got the lake in Toronto, which you can always go down to, and it's got beautiful views as well, don't get me wrong. I did, however, notice, I went to the beach more in Vancouver than I ever did in Toronto, but I would say that like the beaches and kind of the scenic areas in Vancouver are a little bit better kept. The beaches seemed cleaner than from what I remember in Toronto. And I feel like that's probably just another thing that the city puts a lot of effort into, is making sure that their scenic areas that tend to be big tourist attractions are kept clean. So that was a big plus for me. And like beyond that, if you want to live somewhere where nature is accessible, but you're still in a big city, Vancouver is a really incredible place for that. The final point I want to touch on is making friends. I just want to say this is another thing that I was told it would be really hard to do, is making friends in Vancouver. So again, a little bit of a disclaimer, I moved to Vancouver during a pandemic. So it's not like I can just go and meet a bunch of random new people. I physically could not do that. Vancouver wasn't really in as much of a lockdown as Toronto was. So I could still go to, at least when I got there, I could go to things like fitness classes. Here's the thing. When I went to Vancouver, everyone was super friendly. Like, I had so many conversations with random strangers just like on the beach or walking on the seawall, and everyone was just like so friendly and loved being outdoors and smiling at people. And like that whole situation was a really good vibe. And I did make some friends while I was out there, mostly through fitness classes and acting classes, because those are two things that I take often. So in that situation, I made friends through my hobbies and my activities. This is kind of why I want to make the point, is that maybe they're not the closest friends, like I didn't make any new best friends while I was out there or anything, but I still met people that if I were still there, I'm sure I would still be hanging out with them. I also met Cass out there. Even though she's from Toronto, I met her out there and I talk to her all the time, and we're really good friends now. So I did make friends, and I think that after university or school, it's just so easy to make friends in school, and then after that, if you want to make new friends, you have to do new things, and you kind of have to put yourself out there. So I genuinely didn't find it too difficult to make friends in comparison to anywhere else. Like if I'm in Toronto, I'm still gonna only make friends through hobbies or something that I do, you know? As soon as you leave the place where the friend group is that you grew up with, you're gonna have to put some work into finding new friends, and that's kind of just how it goes. And I did meet some really good people, and I did make some friends. On that point, I think you have to put yourself out there, and you have to do some hobbies that you really love and meet people through that, and don't be scared to smile at people and introduce yourself when you go and do those things. And that's how you make friends anywhere, right? So I don't think it's necessarily harder out there. I think it's maybe just because a lot of the people who are moving to Vancouver are all alone and they're all by themselves, and they don't get to bring friends with them. So you're basically starting from scratch as far as making new friends goes. So yeah, I hope I covered some key points. I might want to do a couple more videos on this. I don't know, guys. I'm all over the place right now. I have a life update video coming soon too. So much has happened. I hope that you guys found this a little bit helpful. Ask any questions you want down below. I'm sure I missed so many things that you probably want to learn about. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to smile, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.